Hello, heathens. I'm Megan Angus, and this is Spinning the Wheel podcast. In this weekly audio ritual, we explore the 8 seasons of the Witch's Wheel of the Year, and we discover how it is so much more than 8 Sabbats. We weirding witches time travel through holy days, festivals, and celestial events connecting our celebrations and magic to the past, present, and future. Our cackling fills the night as we take our turn gathering the wool, wielding the distaff, and spinning the wheel. Welcome back, heathens. It is I, your wizened host, Megan Angus, returning from the depths with another episode of Spinning the Wheel podcast for you, most gentlest of listeners. Thanks for being here with me. We got some amount of stuff to cover. Not as much as last week, which thank goddess, honestly. That was a lot. This week is actually really straightforward, in my opinion. So let's do the pre stuff, and then let's get right into it, right? But first off, what are we dealing with this week? Where are we? This is Litha season, full buck moon in Capricorn, lunar week 14 for some lunar processes that we have around the planet. Let's see, what have we got? Next classes that are coming up, right? We got to get all the preamble out of the way. The next classes that are coming up at some point in July, I will be hosting our July Tarot Circle. This is a free thank you monthly community building, hangout, lecture, work it out, workshop sesh. You never know what you're going to get. Usually on tarot. Will it be on tarot this month? I don't know. You look at me like I'm in control of this. I am along for the ride as much as you are. So who knows what it's going to be, but that's coming up soon. And then towards the end of the month, we are going to have our next Wheel of the Year class. Our next Sabbat, Lunasa, is coming up very, very shortly, quicker than you think. That is officially August 1st. The class will be before August 1st. I will have exact dates for you eventually. You can sign up to my irregular newsletter if you want to chance it and get a discount code to be alerted when stuff is coming up. You can also follow me on social media. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel to always get alerts when a new live stream has been scheduled. The Wheel of the Year classes are generally always live streams. Or, of course, you can always join my Patreon. Hey! And get this and so much more. Seriously, patrons are getting like a lot of bonus content right now. So, just saying. You're going to get your money's worth. And, Tarot Circle is a means of me saying thanks to all of my patrons. That's free for everybody who's subscribed. And it's recorded and uploaded to the Patreon bag of holding. And folks that are subbed at the Venus level and higher, which is $9 whopping a month and higher, get access to that bag and everything that's in it, which is a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff. Yeah. Okay. So that's all of that stuff. I do tarot readings and astrology readings if you're new around here. I do that stuff too. My books are currently closed for new clients, but they are open for patrons. See, this is what I'm talking about. Patrons are getting stuff that other people are not getting right now. My books will be opening soon for all of you regular people. But yeah. Tarot and astrology can be really fantastic vocabularies for telling yourself the story of yourself and working through the astrology of the times and the energies of the seasons that we're in, etc., etc. Of course, you can always pull your own cards. Be your own guru. We're going to be talking about gurus this week. So all of that is what's going on out there in those places. Go check it out. You can get more information on my website. You can go to my Patreon and get more information. Like I said, sign up for the newsletter. All right, that's enough of that. Um, is that everything? Yeah, that is everything. Okay, that's good. Last but not least, if subscribing to things is like not your jam, I get it. Whether it's about financials or like trying to limit social media stuff or whatever, I get that stuff. Share this work. That is exceptionally powerful. Tell a friend, tell a coworker, tell a loved one. Um, and if you are of a mind, leave a rating and or leave a review on whatever platform it is that you listen to this on. That is also extraordinarily helpful for me. Like, wow, boy, howdy, do the algorithms love that stuff. So that's like very, very helpful to me. Whatever it is, even if you just, wink into the sky, I'll catch the vibes and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, let's get into this week. As I said, we are in Litha season, full buck moon in Capricorn, lunar week 14 by some lunar calendars around the planet. And as we have mentioned several times already in the last couple of weeks, in Litha season, we are dealing with issues of power, transformation, healing, fertility, and something around commitment or determination or responsibility, something that falls into that kind of a category. Um, and this is a week that is going to bring home some of that stuff. And as we move through the astrology of July, a lot of this stuff is really going to get brought home. And it's interesting because the big astro stuff that's coming up for us in Litha season is not necessarily stuff that happens every year. We've got our sun stuff and our moon stuff that's going to happen every year. But the rest of this is sort of a crapshoot, and it just happens to be happening during Litha season, which is our season of dealing with issues around power and claiming our power and wrangling power and all of that stuff. So it's very interesting. Um, you know, I'm sure it's just a coincidence, as we like to say here on the podcast, or it's some design and grand plan, or it's total chaos. But because of trauma, we're really good at identifying patterns. Pick your your vocabulary, however you want to talk to yourself about this. That's what's up. Okay, so we are kicking off this week with this big fat full moon. This is officially our first full moon of summer. Yay! Cute. If I had a sound person, that's where you would put the audience thing. This is our first and only full moon of Litha. And this is our first and only full moon of Cancer season. But this is also our first of four full moons actually, in summertime. We're going to have an interesting lunar process as we move through summer. And this is the buck moon. When we are working with the workbook from class, we have our big giant list of moon names. And in July, we have the buck moon, we have the wart moon. This is a witchy pagan name for this full moon, because we are doing our herb harvesting, our ethical herb harvesting at this time of year for the warts, the magicks, the plant magicks that want to come and work with us, that we are going to be working with in our spells throughout the rest of the year and whatever our magical workings are. Thunder moon. This moon is also called honeymoon. Sometimes the June moon is the honeymoon. Sometimes the July moon is honeymoon. In the Farmer's Almanac, what they say is whatever full moon is the first full moon after summer solstice, that is the honeymoon. And that can fall in July or June. So, your mileage may vary on that. Heavy fruit moon. We love to see that. And others. There's a whole list of really cool names in the workbook. But this is giving you kind of an idea, right? Like thunder, we know that the storm season is rolling in. Wart moon, we know we're gathering our herbs. The honeymoon, there's something here that's about sweetness and about sacred marriages. The buck moon, we're getting a sense of deers and deers. deer and stags that are out there doing their thing. And the heavy fruit moon, meaning that some stuff is starting to come into ripeness as we move into the month of July. So, yes, um, we are in a full moon, and the full moon is the fruit in our process, in our lunar process, as we move from new moon to full moon and back to new moon again. The full moon represents a fruit. There is some proof or some evidence of the work that we've been doing so far that has decided to appear and show up and go, hey, look, here's some results from what your efforts have been. And, you know, is that good? Is that bad? Depends, right? Depends on what we've been building, depends on what we've been working at, depends on what we've been putting our energy into or not. Um, as to, are those results positive, negative, hopeful, not so much, etc. Um, and this particular moon, this particular full moon is in Capricorn, which means that it's ruled by Saturn, who is hanging out in Pisces. And we have a long conversation. We're in the midst of a 2.5 year conversation with Saturn whilst it is hanging out in Pisces around this idea of what is it to build a container that could hold the fantasy? What is it to build a container that can hold back the abyss? And we've said those things several times this year already as Saturn has entered Pisces and is hanging out there again for the next 2.5 years. So this is a long conversation. So this moon is part of that conversation. Whatever is coming up for us on this full moon in Capricorn is part of that conversation. And this moon is aspecting or is aspected by, however you want to look at that, a few different things. But the one thing that I think is really pertinent to this is an opposition to Mercury at 14 degrees of Cancer. The sun is at 11 degrees of Cancer, moon at 11 degrees of Capricorn. Full moons, the sun and the moon are always opposite each other. Um, and I think that the Mercury piece is the thing here, because Mercury is going to have an interesting process this week and next week. I'm looking at my notes. Yeah, all of July, honestly, is an interesting time for little Mercury up there, up there zipping. Mercury is flying super fast through the sky right now, like super duper fast through the sky right now, and so I think Mercury is the piece that's the most interesting here. So let me look at my notes. First off, when we're dealing with a full moon in Capricorn, our basic fundamental issues and stuff that's going to be coming up for us are things concerning parenting. Whether you are the parent, whether you're dealing with your parents, whether you're dealing with your kids who might be dealing with parenting, however that is coming into your life, parenting stuff may come up for you with this full moon. Karma issues. And karma is a loaded word. Karma is a very interesting word that a lot of folks get wrong or deal with in a weird way. A lot of folks think of karma as strictly meaning retribution or like clap back from the universe. And karma really is just the response from the universe. So again, the results of efforts, really, the response from the system that we've been putting things into. And that's really sort of where I was talking before of like, is it good, bad? Who knows? What have you been doing? You know, just in a very like broad stroke way of describing it, if you are a person who's constantly pumping cynicism and bitterness into the universe, you're probably going to get a lot of that back from the universe in your interactions with people and the way that people think about you and the way that you are framed in other people's conversations and all that stuff, right? And people might even think like you like that and you're cultivating it. The universe also might be like, wow, you really love hanging out in a super bitter and cynical place. So I guess that's what you're trying to do. Cool. Here's some more of that. Here's some more experiences to foster that. And that's kind of how karma works. Like, what are you putting into the system? That's what you're going to get back out of the system. So issues around that might be coming up. And that's important because we're in a long process of building stuff and checking on it, and our solar process of the year and all of that. So this is like a moment to sort of check in on, what am I feeding into this and what am I starting to get back out of it. Um, Issues around maturity. Anytime we're dealing with Capricorn energy, it's going to be issues around maturity and vulnerability. And so, how can we approach situations that come up for us this week and this month? Because it's going to get funky. Let me just say that now. It's going to get funky soon. um how can we be vulnerable in those places? How can we stay open-minded in those places and still conduct ourselves with maturity? And maybe those are the same thing, right? Maybe conducting ourselves with maturity is staying vulnerable, staying open-minded, staying open to whatever it is that's happening in front of us. But really figuring out how to like respond to stuff with maturity. So these are our like basic outline words and ideas for hanging out with a full moon in Capricorn. Um, on this particular moon, um, we have some other stuff happening in the sky. So we have, as I mentioned, the sun conjunct Mercury. Basically, they're just a couple degrees apart. And then we also in the sky have Venus square Uranus. And um, and that is a leftover from last week. But either way, the combination of that stuff on a full moon can feel intense. It can increase our sensitivity. We might be really like intellect based, like really wanting to approach everything from an intellectual standpoint rather than feeling what's happening or embodying what's happening. Um, and with that energy from Uranus, we might really be seeking whatever is odd or new or unusual. And so collectively, all of that stuff might feel really charged due to the proximity of Mars. What? Where is Mars? Well, Mars and Venus are nearly conjunct in the sky, and they're going to stay that way from July 4th to July 8th. They're not going to get together. They're not going to be conjunct. They're going to be just a few degrees apart and then slowly separate, which increases the tension. It increases the like, about of everything without necessarily providing a release for that. Right? Okay. And so again, this full moon might feel like it has this like energy and this tension and this like building something behind it, which is great if you are wanting to summon passion or intensity in your life or in your circumstance or whatever, your magic or whatever it is. It's tough if you have anxiety issues, if you are a person that feels like you're high strung on a regular basis. This might be a moon that's like, wow, this is really like a super buzzy, electrified moon. And I need to like calm down and do some deep breathing and walk a little slower and like take a moment for myself. So this could be electrifying, or this can feel very like anxiety inducing, nervous kind of stuff. Um, the big takeaway here is stay as grounded in this process as you can. Um, don't let your thoughts or your ideas or stuff that comes through communication, like text messages or whatever, um, don't let those things block out your emotions, right? You like, that person said what they said, but you're feeling what you're feeling. And both of these things in this moment might be valid and equal. Um, you don't necessarily need to make any decisions on what you're feeling, but you do want to just let yourself feel what you're feeling, because with the Saturn influence, Capricorn, the maturity influence, um, there's an opportunity to like shut it down. And then all this other stuff that's going on in the sky, there's this opportunity to like shut it down on the emotional world. Like, I'm going to be logical. I'm going to be structured. I'm going to be rational. I'm going to be mature. And super great. Yes, wonderful. But you also still need to feel whatever it is that you're feeling about that. Again, you don't have to act on your feelings, but you do need to be uh, honest with yourself about what you're feeling. Um, and from a more neutral standpoint, just thinking about the Capricorn full moon itself, this is a fantastic time for creating slash reinforcing or recommitting yourself to structures and things that provide you a sense of safety in your life, especially within your daily routines. So if you started a daily routine a while back and you've fallen off, come back to it. Utilize this full moon as an opportunity to come back to it. Um, and through those things, identifying with our internal world. Um, that's what's up. That's really what's up. And the other thing that I would say about this moon is, all that stuff is cool, but and possibly the best way to work with this full moon is to create a ritual for yourself, or utilize a guided visualization, or whatever you need to do to ground yourself, to come into your body, to come into the present moment, to be present in the here and now, and kind of have that stance for the entire month. For real. Like, this is really not a month to be sort of out there in the cosmos and the boonies, consciousness wise. Goddess bless a little psychedelic trip every now and then, etc., etc. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to live or not live, but this is a month where we just need to have our feet on the ground and be in the moment a little bit more so than maybe some of the other months of this year, because again, we do have some interesting astrology coming up right around the corner. And so it's ultimately going to make it easier for us if we can be present for the hard and weird shit. That's what's up. Okay. Okay. I think that's everything that I want to say about this full moon in terms of the magicks. Um, uh, oh no, the other thing I want to say is this, and this is going to be also in your journaling suggestions at the end of the podcast, is that this is a moon that does focus on ancestors. Again, parenting, I guess I did kind of cover, yeah, kind of, but this is a moon that really focuses on ancestors, ancestor work, ancestor worship. This is a great moon to clean off and rebuild your ancestor altar 100%. If you don't have one, you might think about starting one if that's something that you want to bring into your practice. Of course, 100% in support of you deciding who qualifies as your ancestors and what kind of work you would like to be doing with them. This is a moon where we can either honor ancestors, or we are calling out ancestors and we are trying to reconcile things, and we, that, like I'm saying, you pick your path with that stuff and what kind of work you want to do or think that you need to do or feel like you need to do based on where you are in your process and all that stuff. And again, you get to pick who your ancestors are. Some of this work I do encourage you to do with quote unquote blood ancestors, but a lot of us don't know who those people are. Or that's an abstract for us. Those are not literal people that we met in our lifetimes or have had any real encounters with. So you pick, you go. You know what you need to be doing here. Um, as always, let me say this. For our lunar body, before I forget to say this, for our lunar body, we are resting, relaxing, nourishing, supporting, or otherwise restoring the bones, the hair, the nails, the teeth. So yes, the collagen treatment for your nails is a holy act this week. The, oil treatment for your scalp, holy act this week, 100%. Get into it. Those are all parts of the body that are ruled by Capricorn. For our plant body work, with our full moon slash stepping into a waning moon portion of the process, we are maintaining or breaking down old containers, borders, fences, beds, and structures. And so, if you are dealing with your plants in the house or you're dealing with your plants outside, this is a great time to look at their containers, look at the borders, look at the fences, look at the gardening beds, and see, does anything need repair, or is it beyond repair and it needs to be torn apart and replaced, and composted ultimately and utilized in some other way. We are going to be harvesting seeds and roots that we intend to use for replanting. This is a great time for fertilizing, if that makes sense for the plants that you're growing. This is a great time for planting roots and tubers, planting biennials, perennials, bulbs, as well as trees, and a great time for planting grapes, berries, potatoes, shrubs. This is a fantastic time for pulling weeds or cutting trees that we are then going to eventually process into firewood or lumber. This is also a good time for plowing, cultivating, pruning our trees and our vines, as well as doing pest and disease control as we come into the hottest part of the year. Um, you know, the weather is changing yet again, and so we just want to check in on how our plant buddies are doing with all of that stuff. Okay. As always, I have included charts for all of the moons of this week in the copious notes that I post for patrons now. And everybody at the Mercury level and higher has access to those notes. But this week, I have also included a bonus video of a guided visualization. Hey, this might have been why I mentioned it, for Litha and all of our summertime work. So if you don't want to utilize this on this full moon, I think that this is something that can assist us throughout summertime. And this is to discover a tool to help us bring in the power of this season, as well as to sit with the responsibility of that power. I recorded this out at Cascadian Midsummer. My friend Ryan Allred recorded it for me and just got me back the edited video, and I am sharing it with you all. Well, all of you patrons. So, as I said, lots of freebies for patrons right now. Enjoy. But there are the charts. You can look at the notes, etc., etc. Okay, moving on to the holy days of July 3rd on this big fat buck Capricorn full moon. All right, kicking us off this week, woo! From our ancient Egyptian friends and ancestors, we have the procession of Sopdu and the feast of Hekat. So let's talk about these two deities for just a second because they're pretty cool. Sopdu, also rendered as Septu or Sopadu, was or is a god of the sky and of the eastern border regions in the religion of ancient Egypt. He was the husband of a goddess named Kensit, and Kensit or Chensit means the placenta. Now that's important and interesting. Just put a pin in that. Sopdu, sky god, connected with the god Sa, S-H-A, who was basically a representation of the constellation where we find Orion. And Sopdu is also connected to the goddess Sopdet, who we will talk about more in just a little bit. Horus Sopdu is a combination of Sopdu and the greater sky god Horus, and is the offspring of Osiris Sa and Isis Sopdet. As the god of the east, Sopdu was said to protect Egyptian outposts along the frontiers and to help the pharaoh control those region's foreign inhabitants, quote unquote. He was referred to as the Lord of the East, and he had his greatest cult center at the easternmost nome of Lower Egypt, which was named Per Sopdu. Now, one of the things that I think is interesting about this character is that Sopdu's name is composed of the hieroglyph for sharp, which is a pointed triangle. Folks who were with me in the Fire in the Tarot workshop know that pointed triangles are kind of a big deal, especially at this time of year. But a literal translation of Sopdu's name means the sharp one or sharp ones. Yeah, very interesting character. There's more out there to find out if you are interested in Sopdu. Highly recommend checking them out. Very cool stuff. Also on this day, from our ancient Egyptian friends and ancestors, we have the feast of Hekat. So Hekat Also might have been pronounced Heket or Hektit or Hekatet, is believed to be Egyptian goddess, believed to potentially be the origin of Hecate. I mean, their names certainly sound very familiar, and so do their works. Heket or Hekatit or Hekatet uh, was or is an Egyptian goddess of fertility, identified with Hathor, represented in the form of a frog, which is cool, weird magic on a whole other scale. To the Egyptians, the frog was an ancient symbol of fertility, and to other groups, a symbol of reincarnation. Um, and was deeply related to the annual flooding of the Nile, which is just about to take place in the ancient Egyptian world. Heket or Hekatit was originally the female counterpart of Num, or the wife of Num, by whom she became the mother of Her. And Num uh, was a god that was also recognized and deeply connected to the source of the Nile and the annual flooding of the Nile as well. So we have a character initially that is connected to the placenta, and now we have a character that is connected to the spilling waters of the Nile. Yeah, yes, that is that. That is in fact that. Um, their name is written as Heket with the determinative frog at the beginning. But there is a sound in there or a hieroglyph connected with their name that means egg as well. So birth and fertility stuff is all dialed up in there. Um, and scrolling through my notes here, or scrolling through Wikipedia, honestly, is where we're at right now. Heket was considered the wife of Num, who formed the bodies of new children on his potter's wheel. Very, very cool. Heket breathed the life into the new body of Horus at birth in the Osiris myth. And so she is a goddess that is connected with the last moments leading up to birth. Yes. So again, placenta, spilling waters of the Nile, last moments of birth, etc., etc. Um, very cool stuff. Associated explicitly with the last stages of the flooding of the Nile, and so with the germination of corn, um, and more and more. Also, another very interesting deity to find out more about. Hequet is how you spell their name. Okay, what else is going on this day? From our Hindu friends and ancestors, we have Guru Purnima, and this is a festival that is dedicated literally to um, disciples offering puja or paying respects to their gurus. The word guru is derived from two Sanskrit words, gu and ru, which together mean the one who dispels the darkness and takes towards the light. Thus, guru simply refers to the spiritual guide who enlightens disciples by his knowledge or her knowledge or their knowledge and teachings. So, hail, hail to all the gurus out there and the folks who are dispelling ignorance and bringing enlightenment, and all of that good stuff. Okay. Also on this day, from our Buddhist friends and ancestors, we have Astala Puja. Astala Puja Day, or Ashana is how it's pronounced in a few other places. This is mostly from Thailand, is a Buddhist festival that occurs on the full moon of the 8th lunar month, which is usually in July. Here we are. The festival pays homage to the Buddha and commemorates the Buddha's first sermon and the founding of the Buddha's Sangha, the Four Noble Truths. Also on this day, from our English and Welsh friends and ancestors, we have the day of Ceridwen or Ceridwen and her cauldron. And this is the second of these that happens throughout the year. And this to me initially was interesting. And I don't know if I'm just like putting stuff together or if I'm putting stuff together. You know what I'm saying? But Ceridwen or Ceridwen is the keeper of the cauldron, obviously, and is a crone goddess connected with wisdom, magic, prophecy, knowledge of the underworld. And so she's very much connected to a goddess like Hecate. who has already been brought up in Hecate, right? And also a goddess connected to a cauldron wherein we find great waters, right? And burbling potions and burbling fluids. The cauldron is certainly a metaphor utilized, or is utilized as a metaphor for the womb, what whomstever it is that has that womb, whatever gender you are, or if we're thinking about the womb where that might be at the top of a river, for example, and spilling out its waters. But her legend is heavy with transformation and heavy with magic. She oversees rebirth, and so on and on and on, right? Like the symbolism is really lining up for us already, and we're just a day in. Pretty potent stuff. Her crone stance not only connects her to Hecate and Hecate potentially, but also our Capricorn full moon. So again, like, what are the odds? I'm sure it's just a coincidence, right? That here we are talking about this stuff. But she is definitely, connected to quote unquote the darker sides of the goddess, the underworld portions, the elements of goddess that is doing work in taboo or unseen, or in the underworld, or in the unconscious, or in the shadows, or behind the closed door, or whatever. And part of that, I was like, why now? Why in the middle of summer? But we're in Cancer season. Cancer is overseen by the moon. Obviously, the moon connects us to the High Priestess card in tarot. But also the Capricorn full moon is the moon in the sign that is its own opposition. And so I don't know, maybe I'm just like smashing stuff together in my head, but maybe there's something there, sort of like saying that in the midst of the season of the moon, the full moon in the middle of Cancer is actually like this darker spot, or this place where we can kind of move through the mirror darkly, in a sense. I don't know. Interesting stuff there. You go figure it out. You what does it mean to you? What does it mean? Oh, will we ever know? Okay. Also on this day from our Roman friends and ancestors, we have the Equitum Romanorum, which the only thing that I have been able to find in my notes or on the internet is that, and I probably could search harder, but I didn't, is that this is a procession of the Roman knights. So equestrian stuff, that's Equitum, it's in the name. Knights, warriors, fancy stuff. We have some warrior energy later in the week, but mostly I'm kind of like, I don't know what this connects to, but it was there on the calendar. So, it was in my notes. So we had to write it down. All right, let's move on to Tuesday, July 4th. Oh, okay. Wait, now it's starting to make sense. Shit. But before that, how about an ad? Okay. If you love this podcast, you can support this work through Patreon. Thank you a bajillion billion times. See, the sirens are going off even as I say it. Thank you so much to my patrons. You guys don't even know. You don't even know. Thank you so much. You can sub for as little as $1 if you just think this podcast is dope and you want to support it. I don't run ads on the podcast, partly because I don't want to, and partly because I won't get paid even if I do. So screw them, man. You can sub, as I said, for as little as $1 or $5, even if you want to just support the podcast. And this is plenty of information. But if you want even more information, extra podcasts, extra videos, extra information about the Wheel of the Year, magical practices, tarot, etc., subbing at the higher levels, you get all kinds of cool free stuff. And at the even higher levels, you get free readings every month with me to be able to integrate all of this information into your personal life based on what's going on in your natal chart and all of that other good stuff. Join and change your life forever. or, whatever. Thanks so much for the support. If you can't support financially, I completely understand because life sucks on Earth right now. It's too expensive for everything. Tell a friend, share it on social media, give it a thumbs up. If you're feeling especially hedonistic, you can leave a rating or a review. All right, that's the end of the ad. Let's get back to the podcast. Okie dokie. What was that voice? Oh, I'm glad you could all be here with me for that. Ahem. Tuesday, July 4th. Okay, for our astrology, we have the moon entering Aquarius. Cute. We will talk more about it in just a couple days. So let's us scooch directly onto the holy days of July 4th, wherein we find running from approximately July 4th to August 14th. From our Hindu friends and ancestors, the festival of Hindala Utsav, excuse me. And this festival is about 5,000 years old, NBD, guys. And this is where devotees create these incredibly complicated and beautiful and complex and extremely colorful swings that they then put a statue or an icon or an image of Lord Krishna, and they literally swing Lord Krishna on the swing. And this goes back to deep myth stuff, but it ultimately becomes a focus of devotion, the rocking Lord Krishna back and forth. They are rolled through the streets and shown off and shared with other people. And the idea is to in part help keep him asleep. That he lays down and goes to sleep, and they rock him to keep him asleep for a long time. Cool stuff. Okay. Also on this day, we have Independence Day for America. I don't really feel like I have to go into that, but it's a made up day that doesn't, have any really historical basis to it. And it's a moment where a bunch of colonizers like high-fived each other. Yeah. And now, every year, we blow up a ton of stuff and we scare the shit out of dogs and cats and birds. So that's fun. I'm gonna be honest. I love a good firework. I'm a fan of loud noises and stuff blowing up. I'll be very straightforward with that. I also understand that we are kind of like moving into a space with our relationship with the natural world where the natural world is done with our shit. So it's like done. So sparklers, maybe some of those weird little like snakes, the little ashy snakes that you get on the ground, maybe some of the like twirling flower things. That's it, right? That's it. That's all we are going to be allowed to get away with anymore these days. Uh, and that's all I have for Tuesday. Okay, let's move on directly to Wednesday, July 5th. That is enough of that. Okay, so Wednesday, July 5th, we have some interesting stuff going on. First off, we have, for our astrology, Mercury in Cancer square Chiron in Aries at 19 or 20-ish degrees, depends on, where this is hitting for you. It's like 19 degrees and 50 minutes, so it's pretty close to 20 degrees, whatever. Close enough. What do we get with Mercury square Chiron? It's not super fun. I wouldn't describe it as like, wee. This could be a day where you are dealing with some struggle, some issue, some tension, some funky vibes in the arena of family stuff. And that family stuff can play out in a bunch of different ways. That family stuff might be patriotism, it might be nationalism, and it's that kind of quote unquote family stuff. It might be literally your family. It might be family members of your partner or your bestie or your roommate. It might be just issues of parenting stuff. Um, but specifically, and why I'm going in hard on that is because Mercury is in Cancer. It's Mercury in Cancer, square Chiron and Aries at 19 degrees. I don't remember if I said all of that, but I think I did. Um, and Cancer represents family and home and all of the baggage and the issues and the awesome stuff that come along with family and home. And Aries is our sense of self. And so squares, we all know what that's about, right? Yikes, right? Arguments, friction. But it's also a place where a situation can take a sharp turn. And a square is a moment where if we apply ourselves, basically what I've said in the past is a square is an opportunity from the universe where the universe or the circumstance or the whatever is pointing to, hey, this is not working well. There's a lot of friction here. There's a lot of tension on this point right here. What do we want to do about that? And if we apply ourselves, right? So that means we have to see it head on. We have to face it. We have to accept it. We have to sit with it. We have to be mature about it. We have to integrate whatever is going on here. We can get better at whatever is going on there. So it's an opportunity for healing. It's an opportunity for improvement. It's not a fun opportunity, but it is an opportunity. And I mean, as an aside, I personally, if I have any more character building events in my life, I'm gonna go rogue. So like, I also get it if you're like, fuck a square. I don't want to deal with squares right now. I get that. I'm not saying that you have to go into this with like wine and roses and a lollipop and stuff. I'm just saying this is the opportunity. You fall down enough times, you either get good at falling down or you get good at standing up, right? But you're going to have an opportunity here. So it's stuff from the past. It's family stuff. And because it's Mercury, there's also an issue here around, is this just a narrative I'm telling myself? What's the vocabulary I'm utilizing to talk to myself about this stuff that's coming up? Am I telling myself fairy tales? Am I just repeating the same thing in my brain over and over again? Or am I getting information that's like really hard to hear right now? It could manifest as that too. Ultimately fussy. The vibes are fussy on this day. They're fussy. Could be very messy, could be very like bleh, and sticky and gross and weird. So this is a day that I definitely recommend. If you need to take a time out, take a motherfucking time out. Go take a walk around the block, drink some water, drink a little bit more water. Be easy and gentle on yourself because your sense of self might be feeling attacked on this day. And that might be true. And it might not be true. And it might be really difficult in the moment to tell. So, just think about it. Think about the words you're using to talk to yourself. Think about the words you're using to talk to other people on this day. Okay. That's our astrology for Wednesday, July 5th. So let us move directly to the holy days of Wednesday, July 5th, wherein we will find the heliacal rising of the fixed star Sirius. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, so I say this every year when we come around to this time of year. And I will say it again. Sirius, the fixed star Sirius has so much cool history attached to it. It has so much cool magic and cool religion and cool archaeology and just like so dope, so amazing, so wild. Why? Well, partly because it is the brightest star in the sky. And so any civilizations that set their calendars utilizing fixed stars, Sirius was a big deal in their time counting systems. It also is a star that's often used for navigation, not as often as the other fixed star that we're going to talk about this week, but it is used because it's so bright. It's like you're always going to be able to find Sirius. That said, goddess bless the fragile and most gentle of researchers that happens to go onto the internet to discover information about Sirius and mythology, religious practices, spiritual stuff, because wow, have the tinfoil hats on standby. It is bonkers out there, guys. And it's like bonkers on page 1 of the search results. It's like, you gotta be careful. Like it just goes directly off the deep end real fast. So I'm just saying that as like, be careful, be aware, use your discernment when you're reading about things on the internet that concern Sirius. Check everybody's references, check my references, check everybody's references, because people lose their goddamn minds when they start talking about the star Sirius and the stuff they think it's connected to. But that said, let's talk about Sirius and the stuff it's connected to. So, where do we find Sirius? We find Sirius in Canis Major, the greater dog, the dog constellation. Was Sirius really important to the Dogon tribe? Yeah, it was. I know. That's like we can't go there. But the name of the fixed star Sirius, the dog star, derives from the Greek Sirios or Sothis, which means sparkling or scorching or sharp. Yeah. Remember from a little bit earlier? Yeah. In Egypt, it was Sothis, according to some sources. Other people say that the Sothis name comes from Greek. And so many epic events in history were connected to Sothis or Sirius doing something or being placed in a particular way in somebody's chart on this magical day when something happened. Somebody was assassinated, or this person was born, or that person died, or whatever it was. Here comes Sirius. Okay. This is one of the 15 Behenian fixed stars. It is often imaged as either a dog or a little virgin. It gives honor, goodwill, favor to men. It gives, it's a star that you work with when you want to work with airy spirits. Of course, we had the Lord of the East that we discussed earlier in the podcast, etc., etc. I can't say too much. I can't say enough, about this star. Even our English word sir derives from Sirius, which is amazing. It was always associated with great heat. The hottest part of the year we still call the dog days, and this is when Sirius is doing its thing, having its heliacal rising with the sun. And yeah, I'm like, where do I, no, that's it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to say that. And I'm also going to say that for ancient Egyptians, the heliacal rising of Sirius coincided with the ancient flooding of the Nile. And as we talked about in last week's podcast, the Nile doesn't flood the Nile Delta anymore yearly because of the Aswan Dam. But before that dam was there, the Nile was flooded every year, and at this time. And this star, this brightest star in the sky, rising with the sun, coincided with this phenomenon on Earth. And so this was the reset of the calendar for ancient Egyptians at this time of year. Yeah, which that's part of the stuff that we're going through now with our various ancient Egyptian holidays. Okay. Is that everything? Yeah, that's everything. All right. From our Roman friends and ancestors, we have sacrifices to the deities, honor, and victory. So honor was or is closely related to the deity Virtus or Virtuous, or excuse me, the goddess of manliness, bravery. And the two are frequently depicted together. Honos is typically shown wearing a chaplet of bay leaves or laurel leaves, while Virtus is identified by her helmet. Virtus connects to victory, and victory in ancient Roman religion was the personified goddess of victory. There you go. And kind of an abstract, sort of like the personification of the spirit of being victorious, which is, again, very nationalistic and very like, yay, we're going to go to war. We're going to win, guys, forever. Hooray. She is kind of the Roman equivalent of the Greek goddess Nike. She was also associated with Bellona. She is, in theory, adapted from the Sabine agricultural goddess Vacuna. Um, so that's an interesting thing that we're going to start to see more of now that we have passed summer solstice. There is going to be incrementally a little bit more and a little bit more emphasis on vegetation deities and deities that oversee production and result in our grow process. Victoria was a symbol of victory over death and determined who would be successful during war. She's often seen with or in a chariot. Interesting, because of course the Chariot card is connected to Cancer. Again, as we like to say around here on the podcast, I'm sure it's just a coincidence. That's right. Okay, so oh, there's something I forgot to mention about Sirius. See, this is why I have notes and then I ignore them. So uh talking about Sirius, we said that another name for this star is Sothis. Another name for this star is Sopdet. Sopdu, Sopdet, yes. Sopdet is the mother of Sopdu. And her name also means triangle or sharp one. And that is because the star Sirius is so bright in the sky, it was thought to be sharp, scorching, hot, pointy, that thing. Their worship also and their work also connected to the heliacal rising of this fixed star and the annual flooding of the Nile. Cool stuff. Very cool stuff. She was depicted as a woman with a 5-pointed star on her head, usually with a horned headjet or helmet, similar to Satis. The one of the many numerous related names of Khnum. Also connected to the dog star Sirius, as we've said, etc., etc., etc. Cool stuff. So just had to throw that in there. I was like, we can't not talk about that because it's too cool. It's too cool. Okay. Also on this day, we have from our Catholic friends and ancestors the feast of Saint Cyril and the feast of Saint Methodius, or Saints Cyril and Methodius. So these two were brothers. They were theologians. They were missionaries. They worked evangelizing the Slavs. So, whatever you want to do with that. But also they were credited with devising the Glagolitic alphabet, which ultimately connects to the Cyrillic alphabet. Interesting stuff. There's not much more for me to say about these guys, honestly. But, we know that any place where there's a saint, there was probably a pagan god or goddess behind them. So we make a mark on the calendar just in case. Okay, moving on to Thursday, July 6th, where we find at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, later in the day for everybody else around the planet, the disseminating moon in Aquarius at 29 degrees. Oh no, 29 degrees. That's the anaretic degree that every astrologer in the world is talking about all of a sudden. Oh, okay. Stuff has been at 29 degrees before and will be again. That's kind of all I want to say about it because I'm sort of over hearing about it. The reason why we're hearing about it so much right now, this 29th degree thing, why I'm having a little tantrum, is because Pluto has been hanging out at around the 29th degree of Capricorn, sticking one toe into 0 degrees of Aquarius and then back again and then forward, back again. And so we've been hanging out with a planet on the 29th degree of a sign for a couple of years, and we're going to be for like another year and a half. And the anaretic degree is an intensifying degree. It's like a whatever is going on, things can feel more ramped up and more intensified. Intense good, intense difficult. Astrologers tend to lean towards the intense difficult interpretation. I try to keep a little bit of an open mind about that. Uh, and just think to myself, maybe it's just intensifying. We could have something good, but maybe that's me and my Sagittarius sun that's like, surely there's a bright side to this, right? Sure, right, guys. So either way, this moon is at 29 degrees of Aquarius. Does that make this moon feel more intense? Possibly. I think if it doesn't make this moon feel more intense for you, or isn't a part of the intensity of this moon, that it is a good indicator of what's to come as we move into the next couple of weeks, because things are going to get more intense astrologically. This moon is sextile the North Node in Taurus and trine the South Node in Scorpio, both at 0 degrees, or, 29 degrees, whatever. And they are, or excuse me, they are they're 0 degrees Taurus, more or less, and 0 degrees of Scorpio. It is also opposite Venus at 24 degrees of Leo and Mars at 27 degrees of Leo. So there's that near conjunction thing that I was talking about with those two planets. So before we get into all of that, because those are a lot of words, let's break it down. First off, this is a disseminating moon. So this is our first lunar phase after the full moon. And this is where we see that fruit ripen. Remember, the fruit has appeared at the full moon. The fruit begins to ripen at the disseminating moon. And so often what we see is that stuff happens, something gets said, something gets decided, something whatever, on the full moon, and then the fallout shows up a few days later here with the disseminating moon, the results of the results. And by fallout, I don't necessarily mean anything bad or good. It just is whatever's going to come next from the actions on the full moon. And so this moon is in Aquarius. And looking through Raven Caldera's Moon Phase Astrology, which we talk about all the time, great book. There's some stuff in there that I don't agree with. There's a few, I think, maybe even problematic references, but on total, I think it's a good book. But I'm like that with everything. Like, I don't entirely agree with this, but it's still fantastic. The general message of a disseminating moon in Aquarius is centered around hope. Ooh, I know. Look. It's centered around hope. And that is an interesting thing, right? Okay. So hope means the future. It means let's try. Right. It's a lot of that. And, coming back to that stuff that I was talking about earlier in the week with what are we putting out into the universe is a lot of what we're getting back from the universe. And I want to be really careful with that. I didn't really get too hardcore into the granular on that before. But again, we don't want spiritual bypassing, and this is not victim blaming. This is not that. Okay. I'm not saying that if you're getting transphobia out of the universe, it must be because you're trans or because you're putting transphobia into the universe. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that when you push love out into the universe, that love will come back to you in one form or another. Sometimes we have to be creative about how we interpret that. And sometimes it takes a long time. It's not always a one-to-one, and it's not immediate. So there's that. And that is where hope can come into the conversation, right? I'm doing these things in hopes that it's going to make a difference. I'm being this kind of person in the universe in hopes that it's either making things less bad for somebody or more good for somebody. As well as I'm hoping that I will be happy and I will be satisfied by being this person and living this way. I hope that I will have peace when I look back on my life, right? And think I did what I could. That's that. And some of the other stuff that Raven Caldera points to is Who are you hanging out with? Does your community inspire hope for you? And if they do, fantastic. How are you interacting with that? How are you fostering it? How are you contributing to it? How are you benefited from it? But if your friend group doesn't inspire hope, if you can't think of anybody in your life that inspires hope, what does that say about your process? Why are you surrounded by people that are not fostering hope for you? Um, why are you not seeking people who could help foster hope for you? It's a tangly convo. When we're talking about Aquarius stuff, it is our community at large. And the disseminating moon is like, and what are the results of me hanging out with this community that I tend to hang out with? That's really at the groundwork of all of this. And then we've got the sextile to North Node, the trine to the South Node. So destiny and fate and our great path and our great work in this lifetime is all kind of tangled and jumbled up into that conversation. It's opposite Venus and Mars in Leo that are nearly conjunct, but not quite. And so there's this weird, like, lust, love, relationship, that level of community and that level of connectivity with other people tangled up in that conversation. Do I have hopes or lack of hope around ever finding the partner that suits my destiny? And right, like, there's a lot of ways that we can interpret this stuff. But all of that could be coming up for you, could be coming up for the people around you, again, because it's Aquarius. Depending on where this is hitting in your chart, if it's in a personal house, if it's in the first, second, third, fourth house, it might feel very, like, up in your face. But if it's in one of the later houses, it might be something that you're witnessing your partner go through, or your friend group, or a coworker, or your neighbor, or whatever. So, but anyways, there's the work that we're doing with this particular moon is, what is my relationship to hope, and what is my relationship to the people around me in terms of, are they contributing to my hope or not about the future and this world, and what's up with that? Okay. For our lunar body work with our disseminating moon in Aquarius, we are resting, relaxing, nourishing, supporting, or otherwise restoring the legs, especially the knees and ankles. I know a lot of people got their ass kicked last week with the Mars square Uranus moment that was happening. So continue your physical therapy, everybody that decided to fall down and break something. Good luck out there. This is a good week to continue that and instill deeper daily routines around self-care. um, for our plant body work, we are pulling weeds, cutting trees for fire and lumber, plowing, cultivating. We're pruning trees and vines. We're doing pest and disease control. We are harvesting below ground crops for drying and storage. We are planting biennials, perennials, and bulbs and roots. We're planting trees, and we're also planting grapes, berries, potatoes, and shrubs. And other than that, our astrology for this day is Mercury in Cancer, sextile Uranus in Taurus at 21 degrees. And so, with all of that stuff going on with Mercury square Chiron and, like, all of that sticky business, um, and Venus and Mars almost conjunct, but not quite. This could be a really helpful transit to help you keep an open mind, to help you stay interested and invested in the weird, in the new, seeking alternative information, seeking different information. And again, when we think about, like, the opportunity for getting tangled up in some really funky personal narratives earlier in the week, um and, like, funky stories from our family or funky information from our family, this transit could actually feel really refreshing. Either it just kind of, like, flips the script and changes up the vibes a little bit and, like, brings a swirl in, and we're like, whoo, some fresh air. Or it helps us have a different take and, like, think about things or look at things from a different perspective, and it, like, be cool with that. It feels like a helpful transit for dealing with whatever stories, narratives, memories might be coming up from our personal stuff or family stuff. Um, yeah, I think it's a transit that can assist us in coming up with a vocabulary that feels empowering and and new. A vocabulary that feels iconoclastic perhaps in some ways and like icon busting, but also kind of breaking through in some ways to like, hey, I think I can talk about this to myself in a different way, which is pretty damn cool. Lastly, at 10:32 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, later in the day for everybody else around the planet, the moon moves into Pisces. So, yes, the emo vibes begin to ramp up. Enjoy a good cry. Uh, okay. For our holy days for Thursday, July 6th, we only have two things going on. We have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Canopus or Canopus. Now, this is a fixed star connected to the constellation Argo. This is located in the keel of the ship Argo. The traditional name Canopus is a Latinization of the ancient Greek Canobos. Its name comes from the mythological Canopus or Canopus, who was a navigator for Menelaus, the king of Sparta. Canopus, I'm reading all of this directly from astrologyking.com. Hooray. Love their info that they have on fixed stars. Canopus or Canopus is the second brightest star in the nighttime sky after Sirius. Canopus's brightness and location well off the ecliptic make it popular for space navigation. Many spacecraft carry a special camera known as a Canopus star tracker. Now, what I think is cool is the metaphor here. Um, this is a star for navigation. Are you feeling a little lost? Perhaps hang out with this fixed star for a while. Get up super early and watch it rise with the sun. Um, Second brightest star in the sky, you'll probably be able to see it unless it's cloudy wherever you are. Hi, Seattle. But otherwise, but you'll probably be able to see it. Um, and utilize it as a tool. Work with it. Ask it if it wants to work with you. Work with it as a tool for finding your way, for getting your direction back, for getting your bearing, for checking your heading, right? That thing. Again, we're halfway through the year. And this full moon in Capricorn that's kicking us off is really saying, like, how's the structure? Where are we at? What have we delivered so far? What have we produced so far? What have we worked on so far? What have we been putting our energy into? And now, what are we starting to get back out of that? And based on those first readings in the laboratory of life, maybe we need to make a correction. And this is a really cool metaphor to work with magically to say, I need some guidance. I need some navigatory guidance. Please help me find my bearings and get my direction dialed in to where it is that I'm meaning to go. Cool stuff. Okay. Also, before we're done with this star, let me say this. As I mentioned before, the Dogon tribe in Africa, very tied to the fixed star Sirius. They thought of it as a goddess that came down from the sky at some point and delivered a gift to them. Do you know what the gift was? Cannabis. Canopus. Cannabis. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Sails, often made from hemp in the ancient world, because it was the strongest natural fiber to weave cloth with. Just gonna put that out there. Just gonna put that there. You can do whatever you want to do with that. Okay, so the only other holy day, the only other moment that we have for Thursday, July the 6th is the aphelion. What the hell is the aphelion? The aphelion is the moment in our orbit around the sun where we are the furthest away from the sun. Uh, our orbit around the sun is not a perfect circle, it is an oval. And the sun is not positioned directly in the middle of that oval. Our oval is a little lopsided, and we get a little closer to the sun part of the year, and we're a little further away from the sun part of the year. And the irony is not lost on me that the aphelion often is just traditionally marked at July 4th. It can fall anywhere from July 2nd or 3rd to July 6th or 7th. But it's often July 4th. Hmm. 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 Again, do whatever you want to with that piece of information. But but yeah, at this point in our process, we are the furthest from the light. We are the furthest from the heat. Even here in the midst of, for those of us in the northern hemisphere, being in the midst of summer and seeing the sun at its height and seeing the sun at the greatest degree of incline uh in at the top of the sky, etc., etc. So another very interesting magical metaphor to work with there. Okay, so let us move directly to Friday, July the 7th. Take a sippy. We have no astrology of note for this day, so we shall scooch directly to the holy days. July 7th and 8th, from our Roman friends and ancestors, we have the festival of Lucaria. What the hell is Lucaria? Nobody knows. We only have traces left. Was it about grove clearing? Was it to honor a deity? Was it drought related? Maybe. What we do know is that it is connected to a gigantic complex of festivals that are going to take place over the next 2 months, and Lucaria kicks it off. And so that list of festivals, and we're going to talk about them in the next several weeks, are Furinalia, Neptunalia, Consualia, Vulcanalia, Alpiciconcevia, and Volturnalia. And those first few, Lucaria, Furinalia, and Neptunalia, all of these, I should say, are festivals that deal with nature. But those first ones, the Lucaria, Furinalia, Neptunalia, all deal with nature in its untamed, raw form. Untamed nature, untamed waters, um, and whether those were underground waters or the ocean itself or whatever, uh, just in their raw natural states. And then all of those later holidays, Consualia, Vulcanalia, etc., are devoted to dealing with nature after the results of human endeavor. So there's something very interesting there in this festival and in this series of festivals of recognizing nature as its own thing, and then also honoring and recognizing nature once people have done stuff to it. And, again, we know that the Romans saw everything as an entity, as a living embodiment of a thing, a living embodiment of an idea, of an abstract, of whatever. So I don't know. I just think that there's something really interesting there. And it might surprise you, but we are already about to step into the beginning of harvest season. Throughout the month of July, we will see the grain harvest come to fruition throughout the northern hemisphere. And it moves like a wave up from the equator toward the North Pole as things ripen and go. And so the civilizations, the cultures that are the closest to the equator right now, if they haven't already, they are going to, in the next week or so, begin to harvest their grains. Gali Baremi is a festival that we see in Turkey every year that is thousands of years old and deeply connected to the grain harvest and horses and all this other really cool stuff, competition and everything. It's like a holiday that sort of straddles between Litha and Lunasa. But yeah, so we're already starting to kick off that stuff. The sun has hit its high point, and it's time to start pulling it in from the fields. That's what's up. No hesitation. Let's go. Okay. Also, on this day, from our Slavic friends and ancestors, we have two holidays that are embedded in each other, sort of. We have the marriage of Yarilo and Lara, and we have Ivan Kupala Day. Um, and Ivan Kupala Day is celebrated throughout the Slavic regions, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, etc. It's an Eastern Slavic equivalent to St. John's Day, and uh, features a lot of very similar midsummer celebrations. Um, it's connected to Eastern Orthodox St. John stuff. But Ivan Kupala Day is an ancient Slavic holiday that combines pagan fertility rites with St. John's Day celebrations, which we see in plenty of other regions. This combination is reflected in the holiday's name. The word Ivan is a Slavic variant of the name John, and Kupala is a deity in the Slavic mythology that embodies the summer solstice. On Kupala Day, young people light bonfires and jump over the flames, just like in so many of our other Litha celebrations and midsummer celebrations that we see around the world. Girls pick flowers and make wreaths and float them on rivers. Again, we see this a ton. And in ancient times, people believed that on the eve of Ivan Kupala, that this was the only time of the year when ferns bloom. And we've talked about the blooming ferns already. This is a euphemism, my friends. Yes, it is. So, you can go into the forest and search for the blooming fern, blooming, quivering, puckering, whatever it is. um, and what I really, really love is that Ivan Kupala Day celebrations declined over the years, but neo-pagans are reviving the process and the practice. Hey, good job, pagans. Okay. Last but not least, for our holy days, for July 7th, we have from our friends and ancestors in Japan, Tanabata. Tanabata is also known as the Star Festival. It is a Japanese festival celebrating the meeting of the deities Hikoboshi and Orihime. The date of the celebration may vary by region, but it generally is around this time of the year, somewhere at the beginning of July. The Tanabata festival originates from the Chinese Qiqiao festival. It celebrates the annual meeting of these two star-crossed lovers, the Weaver Girl and the Cowherd. According to legend, their love was not allowed, thus they were separated by the Silver River. The lovers can reunite once a year on the seventh day of the seventh month. The Silver River symbolizes the Milky Way, and the lovers are represented by the stars Altair and Vega. And this festival was brought to Japan in the 8th century, so folks have been doing this for a very long time. But yeah, it's a summertime festival. It's a star watching festival. Containing lots and then a sacred marriage, right? So lots and lots and lots of Litha vibes all rolled up into that stuff. Okay, that's everything for Friday, July 7th. So let us move to our last day of the lunar week, Saturday, July 8th. It's a shorty week. It's a short lunar week. And we kick it off with the moon moving into Aries on this day. So enjoy that. So the emo vibes are down and the I want to fight about it vibes are up. Okay. Oh, good. Moving directly onto our holy days, from July 8th to August 4th, we kick in our next Celtic tree month, which is the tree month of Holly. How cool is that? So if you didn't know or weren't here for it, last month, our tree month was oak. And this month, our tree month is holly. And of course, at summer solstice, we have the great battle between the oak king and the holly king. The oak king steps down or gives up or is wounded or is tricked or even is killed and sacrificed in some myths. And the holly king takes over. And so I found a really great entry about this on the blog Celtic Moon Dance. So I'm going to read some of what this author has written. Although the oak ruled in the previous month, its counterpart, the holly, takes over in July. This evergreen plant reminds us all year long and is connected to immortality, of nature, unity, courage, and the stability of hearth and home, which is very Cancerian too. The Holly Moon was called Teen or China by the Celts, who knew the potent holly was a symbol of masculine energy and firmness. The ancients used the wood of the holly in construction of weapons and chariot wheels. What? And spear shafts, but also in protective magic. The qualities of a spear shaft are balance and directness. And so there's elements of vigor and balance and being able to fight for just causes. Among the Celtic tree signs, oh no, I don't want to read that. Sorry. So it is connected to the Ogham symbol teen or china. Um, and this is often connected to protection. And that's because holly is sharp and pokey. If you've never hung out with this plant, it's a pain in the ass, honestly. Its leaves are very stiff and they're all very sharp and pokey. The plant is tough to deal with. And so a lot of folks would plant a hedge around their property or around their home utilizing holly because it was hard to get through. Um, and they thought that it wouldn't just work for physical spirits, but malevolent other energetic spirits as well. Um, and so this tree is very much connected to protection, guarding the home, and also sort of demarking the home and the home space, and like this is my spot. This is my area that I'm going to deal with. Anything else that I want to say about Celtic Tree Month? It is a symbol of peace and goodwill. And some people will make holy water, by taking some fresh branches from a tree, rinsing them off quickly, and then putting them in a jar, filling that jar with clean water, and stick that in a window and let it charge in the sun and the moon for 24 hours, especially the moon, but sun and moon. And boom, you've got holy water, aka holy water. And you can use that for whatever you would like to use it for. Your protection magic, especially so, which is something that I'm actually going to recommend at the end of the podcast. So we'll come back around to this conversation in just a moment. But very useful for doing seals of protection around your home, on your pets, and well, be careful with that. I actually haven't looked up to see if holly is safe for animals. So do that research. Research me. See, this is what I'm talking about. Check my references. But you might be able to use it in safe ways where it's not actually getting on your pet. Put it in a spray bottle, hose down the house, etc., etc. Right? Here we go. Okay. So Celtic month of holly for the next 4 weeks or so. Also on this day from our Latvian friends and family, we have Sea and Fisherman's Fest. We've had several of these already throughout the month, and we are going to have several more throughout this entire season. There is a big celebration of the ocean and people who work the ocean in various ways. Yeah. Okay. Also on this day from our Norwegian friends and ancestors, we have the Feast of Sunniva. Saint Sunniva is the patron saint of the Norwegian Church of Norway, as well as all of Western Norway. Who is Sunniva? A saint, supposedly, but I think she's probably a personification of the sun. Hello. Depicted wearing a white crown. Okay. I don't know what to tell you, guys. Her name is literally Sun. Sunniva. Sunniva. Old Icelandic form is Sunnifa. All renditions of the Old English name Sunigfu from sun or sun, meaning sun, and gifu, gift. So, maybe I'm just grasping at straws here. Whatever. Moving on to our Hindu friends and family with the festival of Bendiklam. Uh, this is a regional Indian holiday observed annually around this time of year. It is one of the most important religious festivals. Rituals are conducted to banish evil spirits, and partying continues for 3 days. But it is ultimately to for everybody to come together to pray for and work towards a successful harvest. Yeah, see, this is what I'm saying. Like that harvest vibe is already here. Um, Bending clam is made up of the following three words: be, meaning to get rid of, deen, meaning wood or log, and clam, meaning plague. And so taken together, the word means to get rid of the plague. It's primarily held right before the rainy season and at the end of the sowing season. Um, yeah, very interesting. There is a sacrifice to a god of thunder, um, or thunder full moon, right? A priest or wasan then rings a bell and walks to a sacred forest. Villagers collect fallen tree trunks and leave them in the woods and then bring them back home with much fanfare. The trunks or kong are erected in each locality among the homes. And a vibrant part of this festival are the raths or rots, which are tall structures made of bamboo decorated with colored paper, tinsels, and symbols and messages. And a group of young men carry the rots to the Aetnar, or sacred pool, and throw them into the waters as an offering to the gods. And this is very similar in my mind to Yaganoth festival, the Ratha Yatra festival dedicated to the god Yaganoth, um, where which we get the word juggernaut from, where these gigantic towering things are built and tooled around, and they're chariots. They're gigantic chariots ultimately, and then in that festival they are ultimately burned. In this festival they are ultimately thrown into the water. So chariot, 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 cancer, 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 do with that what you will. Again, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just crazy. Okay. Also on this day, from our Yoruba friends and ancestors, we have the feast of Elegba Bara. And Elegba, also known as Elegwa, is an Orisha that oversees crossroads. He is a master of force, and he is the owner or the overseer of caminos, or roads or paths. All ceremonies and rituals in Santeria, anyways, must first have the approval of Elegua before progressing. And so he is literally a road opener. And before we are going to proceed on the path, we go and talk with this guy first to get permission and to clear the way. Um, Elegua has the keys to the past, the present, and the future, and so is often depicted holding a set of keys. Interestingly, in my mind, that connects us back to Hecate. Um, a figure of Elegua might be placed in the house behind the entrance door, right? So right there, at the incurring, right? Like, where do we get in and out of the place? Where does the road start and stop for our house? Okay. So, those are our holy days. That is our astrology for the week. That is our week, kids. I was telling you, we just don't have as much this week. It's pretty interesting and kind of cool. So, very, very briefly, let's go back over our astrology for the week. Monday, July 3rd, 4:38 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we have our full buck moon in Capricorn at 11 degrees. Tuesday, July 4th, we have the moon entering Aquarius. Wednesday, July 5th, we have Mercury in Cancer, square Chiron in Aries at 19/20 degrees. Thursday, July 6th, we have our disseminating moon in Aquarius at 29 degrees. And then later in the day, the moon moves into Pisces. Also on this day, we have Mercury in Cancer, sextile Uranus in Taurus at 21 degrees. Friday the 7th, nothing. And Saturday, July 8th, we have the moon moving into Aries. So for our magical work, etc., for this week, I kind of feel like the Four of Cups might be a card to work with this week. And then after I wrote that down and I went back through my notes and all of that stuff, I also was feeling the High Priestess might be a card for us to work with this week. Um, and or maybe the Chariot. These are all cards that are appropriate for us during Cancer season. And I think we've already worked with the Chariot, but we certainly could work with it again. We had lots of Chariot references this week, so it would make a lot of sense for us to hang out with that card. But we've got our ancestor work to do, and the High Priestess is one of our deepest ancestors, and really sort of guards the High Priestess guards the path and the way as well. Very different type of deity or entity from an entity like Elegua. I don't mean to compare them, but the High Priestess, wears the crown of Isis, who we talked about this week as well. And they hold the veil between here and the waters that are behind them. And we certainly had a lot of Egyptian references to those types of ideas too. So, feel into it. Like I said, initially I was kind of feeling that the Four of Cups, like this is a little bit of a pouty week. um, but Four of Cups might be more appropriate next week, honestly. um, yeah, so those are your choices. Work with whatever feels right for you. I'm going to kind of focus on the High Priestess, I think. For our witchcraft this week, wrangling ancestors. And again, your mileage may vary, right? Like you do what feels right that makes sense for your process, your spiritual process, your magical process, your personal process, whatever work you're doing around your lineage and your ancestry, if any at all. Again, this might be a week to build an ancestor altar if you don't have one, or talk to yourself about why you don't have one and what's going on with you there. I'm not trying to convince you to have one. It might not be appropriate for you. But just wake up that conversation for yourself. If you do have one, this is a great week for breaking it down, cleaning everything off, and resetting that altar. Also, protection magic. Now, when we are doing protection magic, we have a choice of doing it two different ways. We can either be increasing the strength of protection or decreasing the influence of things that we need to be protected from. So, with the full moon and then waning moon afterwards, we are working to decrease threats and decrease problems and decrease weak spots in our armor and weak spots in our protection and our boundaries and borders. So again, in alignment with that full moon in Capricorn, what energetic fences need to be mended or torn down and rebuilt? And we could use our holy holly water to help us in that process if we want to make some of that. Also, walking a labyrinth this week, I think, could be very, very potent for us under this full moon at the height of summer. If you're up here in the Pacific Northwest, there's a few different labyrinths in our area. There's one over on Vashon Island that I personally really love, but there's others around. So go visit a tucked away labyrinth and walk it out, kid. And last but not least, for our journal prompts this week, our journal prompt for the full moon in Capricorn is write a letter to an ancestor and either burn it or send it. And, you know, again, as I talked about at the beginning of the podcast, it's up to you as to what kind of work you're doing with your ancestors. Are you calling people out? Are you calling people in? Are you praising? Are you honoring? Are you thanking? Are you asking for help? Like, what is that? This is a week to really just lay in on that and dial it in. We're in Cancer season. We got to deal with family shit at some point or another. No, it's super great. It isn't for everybody. And that's okay. But we can't just stuff it down and ignore it. Otherwise it like pops out somewhere else super weird, like what's that? Why is that there? So let yourself come into that conversation in whatever ways are safe and healthy for you, but come into that conversation, and spend a little bit of time there or a lot of time. You know what's right for you. All right, my friends, that is everything. That is the podcast for the week. I hope all of this helps you. For patrons, I hope you guys are helped by the piles of extra input that we've got. We've got our video on the astrology of Litha for this season. I've also got that guided meditation up for you, or hopefully it will be up more or less by the time you hear this podcast. It depends. Sometimes it takes a while for things to upload to Dropbox. But yeah, that's it. All right, that's it. We're done. I'm going to call it. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. Blessed be.